When a young girl stumbles upon a suspicious conversation behind a bustling mall, it appears at first to be just another case of childish imagination. However, one chilling phrase sends a ripple of fear through a single mall guard, igniting an explosive chain of events that no one saw coming. Before we dive into the full story, let us know in the comments where you're reading from, and if you believe in the power of one courageous voice, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe for more enthralling tales of bravery and hidden dangers. What happens when a lone child holds the key to unraveling a devastating plot? Keep watching to find out. Lily Deacon crouched behind a towering blue dumpster, the rancid smell of half-rotten food crawling into her nostrils despite her best efforts not to breathe too heavily. She peered through a narrow gap between the dumpster and the grimy concrete wall, searching for anything she might salvage to quiet her grumbling stomach. Her scuffed sneakers pressed against old cardboard boxes, and her backpack, torn at the seams, lay at her side, ready to store whatever half-edible morsels she found. She was just about to move one of the boxes when footsteps echoed down the alley. Her entire body froze, heart pounding so loudly she feared whoever approached might hear it. Two figures emerged into her line of sight. One was a tall woman wearing a black baseball cap pulled low over her eyes. The other had a shaved head and a jagged scar sweeping across the back of her neck, disappearing beneath the collar of a leather jacket. Lily's muscles tensed. She had an instinctive feeling that these people were bad news. She'd learned the hard way that hanging around adult strangers could be dangerous. Slowly, she tucked herself deeper behind the boxes, praying she wouldn't be spotted. All set, the woman in the cap muttered, her tone grim but urgent. "You got the timer started?" "Yep," replied the scarred woman. Her voice reverberated oddly in the narrow alley. 30 minutes is more than enough. The first woman pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. "We slip out before they even realize. Let the crowds panic. That'll buy us the time we need." Lily's mouth went dry. She couldn't grasp all the details, but she caught the words timer and bang and knew it wasn't good. Her heart hammered painfully as she pressed her back to the grimy wall. She'd heard enough. Whatever was happening, it sounded catastrophic. She didn't move until the pair vanished around the corner, their brisk footsteps fading into silence. Once she was sure they were gone, Lily took a moment to calm her breathing. The overwhelming stench of garbage did nothing to settle her nerves. She needed to figure out what to do. She didn't own a phone. Impossible when you'd been living on the streets for months, avoiding the stepfather who had chased her away. She could try the police, but she'd had her share of bad experiences with adult authorities who never believed her or bothered to help a runaway child. Still, people could be in danger. Gathering her ragged backpack, Lily inched toward the alley's exit. The midday sun blazed over the mall's entrance in the distance, shoppers milling about as though everything was perfectly normal. Her stomach clenched at the realization that time might be running out. She had to warn someone. Stifling her fear, she headed in the direction of the glass-fronted mall, her footsteps dragging as though each step cost her a piece of her courage. Inside, the mall was a swirl of weekend commotion, families chatting over fast food trays, teens laughing outside clothing boutiques. Lily stopped near an informational kiosk. A uniformed guard stood there, scanning the crowd with a bored expression. The guard was a woman in her 40s, her posture stiff but her face relatively kind beneath the slight furrow of her brow. Her name tag read Harriet Collins. Lily hovered by a pillar for several seconds, paralyzed by indecision. Would Harriet Collins just shoo her away, suspecting her of panhandling or loitering? The memory of that conversation in the alley hammered relentlessly in Lily's mind. She had to try. Taking a shaky breath, she approached the guard. Excuse me, ma'am?" Lily's voice wavered. Collins turned, her demeanor businesslike. "Something wrong, kid? Are you lost?" Lily shook her head. "Not lost," she said softly. "But I think there's something really bad happening." Harriet Collins narrowed her eyes, studying the girl's disheveled appearance. "What do you mean, bad? Why don't you explain?" At first, Lily's words came out in a flurry, her nerves tangling into stammers. She recounted hearing the women talk about a timer, about something that would explode. Collins listened, but Lily recognized the glint of skepticism in the guard's eyes. She had seen it before, grown-ups dismissing her as another street kid with tall tales. Lily had to muster the last dregs of her courage. "Please," she managed. "They said 30 minutes. Something about the mall and letting crowds panic. They left a bag, maybe? I'm not sure. They had a plan." Collins studied her face, tapping the walkie-talkie clipped to her belt. "People leave all sorts of packages around," she said, sounding unconvinced. "We get false alarms all the time." A wave of desperation swept over Lily. "I'm telling the truth. They said timer and bang. They used those words exactly. Isn't that suspicious?" Something in Lily's eyes, raw fear, or the haunting sincerity of her voice, seemed to crack Harriet Collins's doubt. The guard's brow creased. "All right," she said, lowering her voice. "Let's check it out. But if this is some kind of prank—" "It's not," Lily insisted, clutching the straps of her backpack. "I swear." Collins nodded and jerked her head. "Follow me. We'll talk somewhere quiet." She guided Lily away from the kiosk, leading her down a side corridor where a couple of closed storefronts offered a more secluded corner. Once they were away from the bustle, Collins pressed the button on her walkie-talkie. "Mall security base, we might have a possible suspicious package. Need a second guard to meet me by the corridor near entrance C." The tension in Lily's shoulders eased slightly. She'd at least convinced the guard to take action. But she still worried about the two women she had overheard. If they were lurking around, if they realized Lily was sounding the alarm. Her stomach churned. Within minutes, another uniformed guard arrived. This one, Officer Jordan Wu, looked younger, with an athletic build and anxious eyes that flicked between Harriet Collins and Lily. Collins quickly explained Lily's story, though Lily noticed she left out some details as though unconvinced. Wu frowned. "I'll look around the atrium first. If there's something suspicious, we'll know soon enough." He jogged off, calling for additional staff on his own radio. Harriet Collins watched him go, then patted Lily's shoulder awkwardly. "All right, let's stay calm, kid," she said. "What's your name?" "Lily," she answered. "Lily Deacon." "Well, Lily, let's head to our main office. Safer for you to wait there until we figure out what's going on." Lily swallowed. She didn't like the idea of being closed off in some office, but it might be better than being left alone. She nodded, hugging her backpack tight. As Collins escorted Lily toward the management wing of the mall, a sense of looming dread began prickling at Lily's spine. Would they find a bag? What if it was a bomb? Her mind churned, recalling the specific mention of 30 minutes. She glanced at a passing digital clock on a store sign. She didn't know exactly when the women in the alley set their timer, but she guessed that each ticking minute was critical. Suddenly, Harriet Collins's walkie-talkie crackled. "Collins, we have a problem," came Officer Wu's voice, trembling with urgency. "I've got eyes on an abandoned duffel near the main fountain. The crowd's huge here. Do we have confirmation from management to check it?" Collins pressed the talk button. "Affirmative. Secure the area. I'll contact local authorities." Lily's heart lurched. It was real. She'd been right, but that only made the fear more potent. If the bag was truly dangerous, then half the mall was in imminent peril. Harriet Collins led Lily into a small management office, telling her to wait on a bench. Lily perched there, anxious energy coursing through her. The guard vanished into an adjoining room, presumably to call the police or higher security forces. It felt as though no time had passed at all before an announcement came over the mall's PA system. "Attention all shoppers, please proceed to the nearest exit. This is an urgent evacuation. Remain calm and follow staff instructions." At first, there was confusion, people glancing around, uncertain if it was a drill. Then a second announcement blasted, more urgent, and the tension snapped. A tidal wave of panicked bodies rushed for the door, some screaming. Lily could hear Harriet Collins in the next room, her voice shouting into a phone as the overhead alarm began to blare. In the hallway, Lily braced against the doorframe as frightened families poured through, shoulders knocking her to the side. She could barely see Harriet Collins behind the throng, but she glimpsed the guard stepping out, frantically waving an arm to direct people. Lily's instincts flared. She had to get out of here, somewhere safe. But at the same time, a pang of conscience struck her. If the bag truly contained a bomb, How many people might be at risk? She forced herself to move. The crowd surged, nearly taking her off her feet. A mother screamed for her child, who was lost in the stampede. Food court chairs toppled, trays clattering to the floor. The air filled with a roar of collective fear. Amid the chaos, a tall figure in plain clothes managed to slip inside the mall's main corridor, moving against the flow of evacuees. Lily spotted him from a distance, though she couldn't make out his face. He seemed oddly calm, scanning the scattering crowds with a cold gaze. She felt a chill. Could it be one of the criminals from the alley? She couldn't be sure. These were women in the alley, but criminals had associates. The suspicion alone made her throat tighten. She scrambled after Harriet Collins, who was beckoning to a group of stragglers to hurry up and exit. "Harriet!" Lily shouted, clinging to the strap of her backpack. "There's someone suspicious?" The guard was preoccupied, yelling into her walkie-talkie. "Everyone out now. I repeat, this is not a drill." Over by the main entrance, multiple police cars screeched to a stop, lights flashing. Officers poured in, trying to maintain order. In the swirling confusion, Lily saw a man wearing a crisp brown suit pushing inside. He looked calm, but determined, police badge clipped to his belt. This new arrival had an air of authority. She was soon proven right when Harriet Collins caught sight of him. The guard's tension seemed to dissipate momentarily. "Detective Foster," she barked. "Over here." Detective Marcus Foster nodded and cut through the crowd. He was tall, with a shaved head and alert blue eyes that flicked from side to side, taking in the scene. Once he reached Harriet Collins, he jerked a thumb toward the frenzied exodus. "What's the status?" Collins drew in a breath, speaking rapidly. "Possible explosive near the main fountain. We're clearing out the building. Kid here overheard someone talking about a bomb, and we found the bag. Could be a hoax, but we can't risk it." At the mention of Kid, Lily stepped forward, mustering her courage. "I'm Lily. I heard them behind the mall. They said something about a timer set for 30 minutes, and..." Detective Foster knelt slightly so he was at Lily's eye level. His voice was calm but direct, as if he was used to high-pressure situations. "Slow down. That's good information. Did you see them place the bag?" She shook her head. "They had a bag. They said 30 minutes and bang. Then they disappeared. I guess they might have hidden it inside." He gave a sharp nod. "All right, we'll handle it." Then he turned to Harriet Collins. "Get her somewhere safe. I need to coordinate with the bomb squad." Collins gently took Lily's arm, guiding her away from the churn of people. Lily trembled, adrenaline surging. She'd done what she could, right? Minutes later, the bomb squad arrived, gear clattering as they hauled it toward the fountain. They began to cordon off the area, shouting for everyone to keep back. The panic had spread throughout the entire mall, even though many people had already spilled onto the streets. Clusters of onlookers hovered outside, some filming with their phones. Detective Marcus Foster orchestrated the perimeter with swift efficiency. Harriet Collins remained near Lily, scanning for any threat. Lily realized that, despite the fear, she felt an odd surge of reassurance. At least these grown-ups were taking her seriously. The bomb squad's technician, encased in a bulky protective suit, knelt by the duffel bag, carefully opening it. A hush fell over the handful of bystanders who lingered, Harriet among them. Moments later, a muffled call rang out. "It's a dummy device, no explosives." A whirlwind of conflicting emotions rushed through Lily. Relief that no one would be hurt, anger that it had been staged, and fresh worry about the two women from the alley. If it was fake, did that mean it was merely a diversion? Detective Foster's expression hardened. The tension in his posture remained. Harriet Collins glanced at him. "So it's all for show?" Foster's voice was grim. "A staged bomb in a crowded mall? That's not a prank. It's a tactical distraction. They wanted to see how fast we respond, and they wanted to tie up our resources." Lily's stomach flipped. She recalled the bits of conversation. "We slip out before they realize." So the mall fiasco could be just step one in a bigger plan? Foster beckoned Lily. "What else did you hear these people say? Anything about a backup plan, or a bigger target?" She shook her head, struggling to remember their exact words. They said something like, "Let the crowds panic." That'll buy the time we need. I think one of them said something about no one expecting the second location, or something. She had been so terrified, bits of memory blurred together. But if a second location existed, Foster asked Harriet Collins, you've got cameras near that fountain, right? Let's get the footage. If these two planted the bag, we'll see them. Collins nodded. The security office is that way. Come on. They moved quickly through deserted corridors, some sections of the mall still mostly vacant after the evacuation. The tension was thick. Lily trotted behind Harriet Collins while Detective Foster strode ahead with urgent focus. They reached a cramped room lined with monitors, each displaying feeds from different corners of the mall. Another guard was stationed at a console, rewinding the footage from earlier that day. There, the guard said, pointing at one particular display. Two women entered the atrium about 40 minutes earlier, a black duffel bag slung over one's shoulder. They kept their faces angled away from the cameras as they slid the bag under a bench near the fountain, then rushed off. Even with the grainy footage, Lily recognized the baseball cap and the shaved head with that distinctive scar. Detective Foster's jaw tightened as he took in the scene. "We need an ID," he muttered. Harriet Collins' brow knitted. "We've had issues with local gangs here sometimes, but that doesn't look like the usual group we see." Foster rubbed his chin. "Well, it's more than just local punks. They orchestrated a fake bomb, they likely have a bigger plan, and they've got the nerve to do it in broad daylight." Turning to Lily, he asked gently, "You caught any names? Any code words for their location or their next move?" She bit her lip, racking her brain. They said something about it, trial run or test. And they definitely said 30 minutes. That's all. Before Foster could respond, his phone buzzed. He stepped away to answer, voice dropping low. Lily let out a long breath, glancing at Harriet Collins. "What happens now?" Lily whispered. Collins rested a hand on Lily's shoulder. "Now we figure out what they're really after. Don't worry, you did the right thing." But Lily's heart thundered. She was thankful the bomb was fake, but dread gnawed at her that the real danger was still out there. Moments later, Detective Foster returned, phone in hand. "We've got an alert about a potential threat at the courthouse downtown. Could be nothing, but the timing lines up. The big trial with that crime syndicate leader. If these women are tied to that group, they might be planning something bigger to disrupt the proceedings." Collins caught on immediately. "So they create chaos at the mall, forcing us to mobilize bomb squads here, while the real target is the courthouse?" Foster gave a single nod. "That's my guess. They're draining our manpower, so we won't be ready for an attack on the courthouse." Lily hugged her backpack. She'd always avoided police or official buildings. Too many questions asked. Now, ironically, she was in the middle of a possible major threat. As if reading her thoughts, Harriet Collins spoke. "We'll keep Lily here for now, or take her back to the precinct. She's safer away from any potential second incident." Foster agreed, tapping out a message on his phone. "Yes, and Lily might need to speak with more investigators. She's basically our only eyewitness who overheard them from the start." He shot Lily an encouraging look. "You're helping a lot, Lily." A swirl of emotion jolted through her. Relief that maybe she was making a difference, but also intimidation at the sudden seriousness. Shortly after, two uniformed officers arrived to transport Lily to the local police station. She found herself in the back seat of a cruiser, Harriet Collins riding shotgun to watch over her. Through the window, Lily saw the blinking red and blue lights still dominating the mall's parking lot, and the crowds milling about behind barricades. A pang of sorrow hit her. She felt partially responsible for the chaos, but she also knew it was the best outcome. No one had been hurt by the fake bomb. As the cruiser headed toward the station, Harriet tried to put Lily at ease. "So, Lily," she said gently, "where's your family? Anybody we can call?" Lily stared at her shoes. "Oh, it's complicated. Child services might step in," Harriet warned. "But don't worry, we'll make sure you're looked after." Lily nodded numbly, though her mind buzzed with dread. The moment child services got involved, they'd try to send her back to her stepfather or place her in some foster home. She wanted no part of either. She felt an odd pang of guilt, like stepping up to save strangers' lives was costing her the little freedom she had. But it wasn't like she could let a bomb detonate. She sighed. At the station, she was ushered through a maze of corridors until they reached a small, quiet room with a single table. Detective Foster arrived a few minutes later, sleeves rolled up, eyes tired. Another detective, a woman named Rima Edwards, joined them, carrying an open laptop. Foster sat across from Lily, speaking in a calm, measured tone. "We'd like you to walk us through everything you remember, start to finish. Even small details might be important." So Lily recounted the entire story, rummaging near the dumpster for scraps, overhearing talk about a timer and 30 minutes. She tried to recall the exact words that might link these women to a bigger plan. They said, "No one expects a second location. We slip out fast. By the time the city calms from the mall, we'll be long gone." Something like that? Rima Edwards took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Could you see the color of their jackets or hats? Any accent in how they spoke? Lily closed her eyes, picturing the moment behind the dumpster. The one in the baseball cap was wearing black. She had a slight accent, maybe East Coast, but not thick. The other had that scar, shaved head. No accent that I noticed. Foster exchanged glances with Edwards. "We'll run that with the partial camera footage. See if it matches any known associates of the criminal network on trial downtown." Lily breathed out, tension easing. Maybe they'd find them quickly. She braced for the next question, but Foster surprised her by shifting topics. "Lily, I want you to know that you're not in trouble. Actually, you're helping us in a huge way. This kind of courage, it's not easy." A lump formed in her throat. She swallowed, not sure how to respond. Being praised by a detective felt surreal. She'd always been a runaway, invisible, an afterthought. Now her testimony mattered immensely. Rima Edwards set aside her notes. "We can't let you wander off, especially if these suspects realize you overheard them. The department will ensure you're protected. We'll also figure out your living situation. That might mean child services gets involved." Lily looked down. "I understand." She said it quietly, not wanting to protest in front of the officers who had bigger crises to handle. Meanwhile, in a downtown courthouse, the tension was already thick. A major trial was underway against a powerful ringleader with rumored ties to smuggling, extortion, and even violent retributions against witnesses. The corridors bustled with lawyers flipping through papers, reporters waiting for a scoop, and law enforcement standing guard. Judge Hollins, a stout woman with an ironclad reputation for fairness, presided over the trial in a high-ceilinged courtroom. At the prosecution's table, Assistant District Attorney Maria Wilson was systematically building her case, witness by witness, piece by piece of incriminating evidence. The defendant, a man in an expensive tailored suit, sat quietly, hands folded. His eyes flicked to the throng of security at the back of the room. During a short recess, 2 officers in Kevlar vests approached the ADA. "We just got word from dispatch. Possible threat on the courthouse." Wilson's posture went rigid. "Like a bomb threat?" "Not sure." But the detective in charge, Marcus Foster, relayed that the incident at the mall might be connected. Wilson grimaced. "We have a big witness testimony scheduled for this afternoon, someone who's going to tie the defendant directly to multiple crimes. If there's a plan to sabotage it, we need maximum security." The officers nodded, moving to coordinate with the courthouse detail. Anxiety rippled through the corridor. No one wanted to panic the public or disrupt the judicial process, but ignoring a credible threat could be disastrous. Back at the police station, Lily sat on a plastic chair in a hallway as Harriet Collins stepped away to get coffee. Detective Foster reappeared, phone in hand, wearing an expression Lily recognized, deep worry. He knelt by Lily, lowering his voice. "We just learned that the courthouse might be the real target. The trial is a big deal, and there's reason to believe someone wants to create chaos or maybe worse. The women you overheard might be a part of this." Lily's eyes widened. "So, they used the mall bomb scare to distract everyone?" Foster nodded. "Exactly. Our bomb squad just confirmed the device was a complete fake, no explosive material. They just rigged a digital timer and some wires to look real. That means they're saving the real thing for somewhere else." His gaze flicked down the hall. "We're short on time, Lily. You said they mentioned they only needed a half hour of chaos at the mall. That means they're probably in motion as we speak. She felt a chill run through her. Can't you, shut down the courthouse or something? Foster sighed. We can raise security and do a thorough sweep, but we can't just postpone a major trial on a hunch. We need evidence of an imminent threat. Right now, we just have partial leads. A police officer hurried up to Foster, speaking in a hushed tone. Lily caught a few words. Traffic cam, same women, parking structure near the courthouse. Her heart thudded. They were definitely heading there. All right, Foster said, stepping away from Lily. Set up a perimeter around that structure. I'm heading down. He pointed to Harriet Collins, who was returning with coffee. Take Lily to a safer area. We'll keep her here for further statements. Collins saluted. Lily's stomach churned. She wondered if there was anything more she could do. Probably not. She was just a homeless kid who'd overheard criminals. Now real cops were on the move, trying to save people. At least she had done her part. Harriet Collins gently prodded Lily, leading her down another corridor. We have a small lounge you can wait in, she said. I promise you'll be safe. Lily nodded mutely, drifting with the guard in a haze of confusion. Detective Marcus Foster hopped into an unmarked sedan, flipping on the siren as he peeled away from the station. Next to him sat Sergeant Diego Reyes, scanning the updates on a laptop. Camera feed caught two individuals matching the mall suspects entering the parking structure behind the courthouse, Reyes explained, tapping keys furiously. They were carrying large backpacks? Foster gritted his teeth. We have to assume at least one is a real bomb this time. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, weaving through city traffic. Alert the courthouse detail. Make sure they do a top-to-bottom sweep. If these criminals plant a device and slip out, it could be catastrophic. Reyes nodded, phone pressed to his ear. I'll coordinate. Miles away, the courthouse was already bracing for the possibility of trouble. The front steps crawled with media outlets hoping to catch a headline about a potential threat. Inside, the local sheriff's department stepped up security, scanning all deliveries and staff thoroughly. One officer commented that it was impossible to check every nook and cranny without halting the trial altogether, which the judge was reluctant to do. At the station lounge, Lily stared at the ticking clock on the wall. Each second felt painfully long. Harriet Collins had given her a styrofoam cup of hot chocolate and a bag of chips. Lily nibbled absently, mind swirling with worry. She kept picturing the two women in the alley, their ominous words. She also felt a pang of guilt that she was here, idle, while something dreadful might be happening downtown. Eventually, an older man in a pressed shirt and tie entered the lounge. He introduced himself as Marshall Kim, a social worker. Lily stiffened at once. She'd had run-ins with social services before. Marshall smiled gently, taking a seat across from her. Hi, Lily. I know this must be scary, but we're here to help. We just need a bit of your background so we can place you somewhere safe. Lily's stomach sank, recalling the times she'd run from foster homes. She dreaded the prospect of being locked in a system that might ignore her or push her around. Still, she felt at least a small debt to the police. Without her, who knows how many might have been in danger. Maybe it was time to accept some help. She nodded, sighing. But, just promise you won't send me back to my stepdad. He's not good. Kim's expression softened. We'll figure out the best arrangement for you, Lily. No one's throwing you into a bad situation. She wasn't entirely convinced, but at least it was a conversation. A flicker of hope sparked that maybe, after all this, she could land somewhere better. Meanwhile, Detective Foster arrived at the courthouse, stepping into a scene of controlled chaos. Extra officers patrolled the hallways, the trial had been paused, and staff huddled in small clusters exchanging anxious whispers. He flashed his badge at the checkpoint, ignoring a reporter's shouted question about whether a bomb was found. Inside the main entrance, a tall deputy approached, handing Foster a printout. We identified the two possible suspects from the garage's security feed. Female, mid-30s, matching the descriptions from the mall fiasco. They left their car and disappeared inside the building. Foster swore under his breath. We've got to find them. They might have stashed something. Is the building fully locked down? As much as we can without obstructing the entire judicial process, the deputy replied, tension in his voice. We're searching every floor. Foster hurried down a corridor, scanning doorways. He passed a storage closet with an officer stationed at it, verifying no suspicious items inside. Another hallway was blocked off, staff reporting something amiss with the ventilation system. The scale of the building made a thorough search daunting, especially with the high-profile trial continuing in the main courtroom. At the end of the hall, he spotted a group of bomb squad personnel. They had set up a small command station with monitors to check real-time security camera feeds. One of the technicians, a slight woman with curly hair, waved him over. Detective, we found a suspicious container in the sub-basement near mechanical controls. Looks like it has wires and a digital panel. Could be real. Foster's pulse kicked into overdrive. All right, let's secure that area. Everyone else out. Do we have an approximate timer? The technician shook her head. No visual readout, but definitely a circuit board. If it's real, we don't know how long until it triggers. Foster grabbed the radio on his belt. We might have a live device in the sub-basement. All available units, begin partial evacuation of the courthouse. Keep the trial participants under guard in a safe area until the device is cleared. Repeat, partial evacuation. Let's move. Officers herded staff and visitors away from the lower floors. The hallways echoed with hurried footsteps and tense orders. Some of the press tried to follow, but they were quickly blocked by thick-armed deputies. The overhead lights flickered momentarily, as though the building itself held its breath in dread. Deep in the sub-basement, 2 bomb squad technicians, clad in protective gear, examined the device. Wires crisscrossed a small canister, and a faint beep intermittently pulsed. Sergeant Reyes, who had arrived with Foster, hovered behind them, speaking softly into the radio. We're in position. Maintaining a safe perimeter. Tech says it could be triggered by movement, so they're going slow. Upstairs, Foster coordinated with the building's security staff to track any sign of the suspects. They're probably trying to slip out. Check every stairwell, every exit. By the front lobby, a pair of female passers-by in hooded jackets approached the main doors, only to freeze at the sight of the heavy police presence. One tried to spin around inconspicuously, but an officer called out, "Hey, wait up." The pair darted, pushing an unsuspecting clerk to the floor. Officers gave chase, shouting for them to stop. One suspect was tackled almost immediately, hissing curses as her cap fell off, revealing short black hair and a distinctive scarring across her scalp. But the second suspect, the one wearing a baseball cap, slipped into a staff stairwell, her footsteps echoing in frantic retreat. Foster, hearing the commotion, sprinted toward the noise. Hold the first suspect. He barked at a cluster of officers, then bolted for the stairwell. He caught a glimpse of the baseball cap's brim as the suspect dashed upward, presumably trying to reach an unguarded exit. Heart hammering, he ascended 2 steps at a time. The suspect threw open a door to the 3rd floor. Foster followed. This corridor was mostly empty, offices closed for the day. The suspect wrenched a window open, an old design that swung outward, and started to hoist herself onto the ledge. "Stop!" Foster shouted. "You have nowhere to go." She paused, looking back with wild eyes. Then, in a last-ditch effort, she hurled a small object across the hallway at him, something that clattered on the floor. Foster flinched, gun trained on her, but realized it was just a phone or a radio device. By the time he recovered, the suspect swung her legs over the windowsill. With a trembling smirk, she muttered, "Better get your bomb nerds working fast. We gave them a real challenge this time." Foster lunged forward, but she dropped from sight. He peered out the window, scanning left and right. 3 floors down, there was a narrow ledge near a landscaping arrangement. She might have braced herself for the fall or planned to scale down. Furious and anxious, he radioed for ground units to circle the building. They found no sign of her. She had either vanished into a tangle of city streets or was lurking out of sight, waiting for a chance to slip away. Meanwhile, the bomb squad in the sub-basement worked meticulously. The device had 2 sets of wiring, each leading to a small circuit board. One technician clipped a wire, only for the beep to quicken, triggering a tense hush. Carefully, they rerouted the connection. Another beep stabilized. Sergeant Reyes hovered a safe distance back, knuckles white as he gripped a flashlight. Time seemed to crawl. In reality, only minutes had passed since they discovered the device. With each passing second, they risked the bomb going off if it was on a timed fuse. At last, the lead technician signaled success. Wires cut. Timers disabled. We're safe. A rush of relief spilled through the basement. Reyes exhaled, voice shaking a bit as he radioed Foster. Device disarmed. No casualties. Upstairs, Foster received the message with a grim smile. Well done. He turned to the captured suspect, the scarred woman pinned by 2 officers. Your partner got away, but we'll find her. Meanwhile, you're under arrest. I suggest you start talking. She glared defiantly, refusing to speak. Later that evening, Lily Deacon sat in a quiet office at the police station. Harriet Collins had brought her a warm meal from a nearby sandwich shop, an upgrade from chips and hot chocolate. Lily took a few bites, but her appetite was overshadowed by a swirl of thoughts. She wondered whether everything had turned out okay. Was the courthouse bomb real? Did they catch those women? People must have evacuated. Did it all happen in time? After finishing some phone calls, Detective Foster reappeared, looking exhausted but relieved. He offered Lily a tight smile. We managed to stop a real bomb at the courthouse. Minimal injuries, just some scrapes in the panic. One suspect is in custody, but the other fled. Lily felt her chest loosen. So, no one got hurt? He nodded. Thanks to you. If we hadn't acted so quickly, we might have lost crucial minutes. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, which felt strange but also comforting. You did good, Lily. She blinked rapidly, tears threatening. She was used to feeling useless, invisible. Now a detective was praising her for helping save countless lives. I'm just glad, she mumbled. Foster's phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen, lips tightening. Excuse me. He stepped out for a moment. Harriet Collins waited by Lily, clearing her throat. You know, the department wants to do something to recognize you. Even an official letter or small ceremony, maybe? Lily's eyes widened. A ceremony? For me? Don't worry, it won't be big. But the city has to know how you stepped up. You overcame your fear. That's real courage. She felt a flush creep into her cheeks. She never expected recognition. Surviving day to day had been her focus, not heroics. The next day, the city hummed with news coverage of the thwarted bombing. Headlines hailed law enforcement's swift response and the key tip from an anonymous young witness. At the police station, Lily found herself facing a small cluster of reporters wanting an interview, but the police shielded her identity due to her age and vulnerability. Harriet Collins and Detective Foster insisted on keeping Lily's full name out of the press. A brief, low-key gathering was arranged in a conference room at the station. A handful of officers, including Harriet and Foster, clapped as Lily was presented with a small certificate of appreciation for her bravery. Lily stood at the front, head bowed, cheeks burning with both pride and embarrassment. This young girl, Harriet Collins announced, overheard a dangerous plan and had the courage to speak up when most kids, or even adults, would have doubted themselves. Her actions led to the saving of countless lives. Lily, we can't thank you enough. Despite the applause, Lily's gaze dropped to her old, worn sneakers. She whispered a quiet thank you, unsure how to handle this gratitude. But inside, a spark of hope lit up, reminding her that maybe her life could change for the better. Afterward, Lily found herself with Harriet Collins, Detective Foster, and social worker Marshall Kim in a small break room. The mood was lighter now that the immediate crisis had passed. Harriet nudged Lily with a gentle smile. We've been talking to Mr. Kim here about what happens next. We want to make sure you have a stable place to live. Lily tensed. She still had nightmares about returning to her old stepfather. Foster seemed to notice. He spoke in a measured tone. We'll do everything we can to ensure you end up in a safe environment. We have your statement about your home situation, and we take it seriously. Mr. Kim cleared his throat. We've identified a reputable foster family that might be a match if you're open to it. Of course, you'll have the chance to meet them, talk, see if it's a good fit. Lily swallowed hard, a swirl of emotions warring in her chest, the fear of foster care, the exhaustion from living on the streets, the faint longing for a normal life. She nodded. "I guess I could try." Harriet patted Lily's shoulder. "You won't be alone. If you need anything, you can always call us. We owe you that much." Some fragile hope flickered in Lily's heart. She had never had a champion before, but maybe now she did. Meanwhile, the suspect in custody refused to talk for nearly a week, ignoring every tactic the investigators tried. The second suspect, still at large, left a trail of rumor. Some claimed she'd fled the state or changed her appearance. Detective Foster and his colleagues pored over every lead, but progress was slow. They discovered a possible link to a broader criminal network that wanted to sabotage the big trial, presumably to free or intimidate the key defendant. Regardless, the main conspirators behind the courthouse bomb attempt were either locked up or on the run. The city breathed a shaky sigh of relief. Still, the trial that had almost been derailed continued, culminating in a guilty verdict for the crime ringleader. The courthouse remained under heavy guard, and while tension simmered, no further bombs or major threats surfaced. For once, the wheels of justice turned without a body count. One crisp morning, Lily stepped out of the foster agency's car in front of a modest suburban house with flower pots on the porch. Harriet Collins, who insisted on accompanying her for support, gave a small nod. "This is it, Lily," she said with quiet encouragement. The foster coordinator led them up the short walkway, explaining that the couple inside was experienced, had a stable environment, and was eager to help a child in need. Lily's stomach churned with nerves. She recalled half a dozen nights sleeping behind a laundromat, rummaging dumpsters, encountering only pitying or scornful glances from strangers. Could she really settle here? The door opened, revealing a middle-aged woman with warm eyes and a bright smile. Her husband stood slightly behind her, offering a friendly wave. "Welcome," the woman said softly. "I'm Denise, and this is Alex. We're so glad to meet you, Lily." Harriet gave Lily a gentle nudge. "Go on." Lily stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon, and the living room was decorated with comfortable-looking furniture. Something about it felt safe. She bit her lower lip, glancing at Harriet, who nodded encouragingly. "Take your time," Harriet whispered. Lily's mind flicked to the chaos of the mall, the frantic crowds, the sirens, the ticking clock on the bomb. That had been only days ago, but it felt like another lifetime. Maybe she thought it was time for something new. Something better. A week later, Lily sat on that same living room couch. She was still adjusting to the normal routines. Dinner at a table, a bed of her own, conversation that didn't revolve around survival. She'd had 2 phone calls from Harriet Collins just to check in, and once she even heard from Detective Marcus Foster, who had big news. They'd uncovered more leads on the woman who escaped, though no final capture yet. Lily hoped they'd find her soon, if only so no one else had to live in fear of a ticking bomb. Sipping a mug of hot cocoa Denise had made, Lily stared out the window at the quiet suburban street. She thought back to that day behind the dumpster, how her entire life had pivoted the moment she decided to speak up. She realized that heroes didn't always wear uniforms or have perfect homes. Sometimes they were just scared kids who refused to let someone get hurt if they could help it. Thank you so much for following this story to its conclusion. If you believe in the courage of ordinary people, and especially the bravery of children, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling stories that remind us how one small voice can change everything. Also, be sure to turn on notifications, so you never miss a single video. Let us know in the comments, would you have stepped up like Lily did? We'd love to hear your thoughts.